Hi, welcome. My name is Samant and welcome to the latest edition of आपके पैसे का प्लान क्या है. And today we are talking about आपकी इनकम टैक्स और सैलरी सेविंग्स का प्लान क्या है. तो I have with me my colleague Parul Bhalotia. She's a chartered accountant and she takes care of all our finances. But more than anything else, she's been very helpful for guiding everyone within the team to make sure that they don't falter on their personal finance, tax planning, salary planning. And since we are in the beginning of the financial year, so we thought इससे बढ़िया मौका नहीं हो सकता that while all of us must be getting asked at our workplace to submit our income tax planning and the salary breakup for the year, that we spend some time and actually go into the details to understand कि हम लोग अपना टैक्स कैसे बचा सकते हैं. How do we manage our salary? They talk about the salary slip, the components of salary slip, which are the components which can help us save those tax. So today the reason of doing this chat is that ये टॉपिक्स बाहर से बहुत गंभीर और डिफिकल्ट लगते हैं, but actually if you spend little bit time, you can demystify it, and these can be really beneficial for all of us. So and in my small career I have seen that lot of us make that mistake of not spending this little time and saying ये दूर से इससे घबरा जाते हैं that ये बहुत ही डेंजरस सब्जेक्ट है, मुझे नहीं समझ आता, मेरे सर के ऊपर से जाता है, and so on so forth. But fact of the matter is that most of us who don't spend that time, what do we end up doing? It is our hard earned money. You are not doing tax avoidance, आप टैक्स की चोरी नहीं कर रहे हैं. This is as per the law. The government has given us certain amount of exemptions, allowances and deductions by which we can actually save income tax from the amount that we are supposed to pay. So it is in some sense our right. And by not doing this planning and by not saving this from our hard-earned money, we're just letting it go. So that is the intent. We need to plan our salary slip nicely. We need to know what deductions and allowances we are eligible for, and therefore provide for it. अपने employers को साल के शुरू में ही बताएं कि मेरे को ये सारी exemptions मैं claim करूंगा. Therefore, please don't deduct my tax. And that is the intent of this call, of this session, and we hope that you like it. और इसके बावजूद भी अगर आपका कोई issue रह जाए, please comment and reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to help you navigate this journey. So without wasting too much time, Parul, why don't we start by talking about this whole thing about income tax, right? So we are especially for salaried because that's our main focus area today. तो सबसे पहले कि ये salary पे income tax, who needs to pay, right? And are there any limits that for this much amount of salary you don't need to pay tax, or if you make so much salary then you will be treated differently? So maybe to start with we should lay out those boundaries. It will be really helpful.
Yeah. Hi everyone. So as you rightly said, Saman, that most of the time employees are not that serious about making these declarations. So this is the right time of the year to think about these facts. Now coming to the taxation perspective, so it is important to understand that the way taxable income is calculated is quite different from the CTC, which is there on our offer letter. So it is important to understand the components of your salary and the taxable and the tax-free allowances part. Now coming to taxation, so there has been no change in taxation slabs since last 2 years. So like there are, in fact, before beginning with this part, I would just like to illustrate by way of 3 tax slabs, and I would just like to divide into 3 buckets as to how because every salaried individual is differently placed when it comes to taxation, and there is no one single solution for all of them. So the first important thing to understand and appreciate is that where exactly you are in that line and situated in that particular tax slab. So I have the first tax slab, the first bucket is wherein the total income is less than rupees 5 lakhs. The second bucket is the example which I have given here is when the income is between 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs, which means the applicable tax rate is 20%. And the third bucket is the one where your income is more than 10 lakhs. And here, by way of income, we just are not just saying our annual salary. It also includes income from other sources. It could be your interest income, because for income tax, it's just that your total income from all the sources what matters here. So if you are lucky, if you fall in the first category, and so wherein your annual income is less than rupees 5 lakhs, so you don't have to worry about income tax planning or making declarations to a great extent, because there is no taxation on income up to 5 lakhs. However, a point to be noted here is it doesn't exempt you from requiring from filing your ITRs, because if your income is between 2.5 to 5 lakhs, you still have to file your ITR, but just that tax would be nil. So accordingly, you would file a nil tax return. But the life is easy for someone who is sitting in the first bucket. Now, for the second example, if your CTC is anywhere between 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs, so if you look at this table, it's illustrated that if you're somewhere, if you see A, B, and C, so it's like A's salary income is just above the threshold of 5 lakhs. So without worrying much about tax planning, he has managed to save his taxes because it's just above the threshold. And we have to discount the fact that there is standard deduction of 50,000 rupees, which is applicable to all the employees, all the salaried employees. So by availing that and a bit of allowances, it's very easy to pay no taxes. But if you see between B and C, although income of C is higher than B, but still C is managing to pay lower taxes just because of better salary structure. It's more efficient because C has taken full benefit of all the allowances which are possible, and hence it underlines the importance of taking full benefit of all the allowances which are possible at your level. Third example is when your income is more than 10 lakhs, which means you are in a 30% tax bracket and you need to do serious tax planning here, because you need to pay more tax if you fall into this particular bucket, because every rupee saved is rupee earned. And if you see this differences in the table below, the illustrations which are mentioned here between A, B, and C. So A and B, so there is difference of 5 lakhs in their annual salary, but still B has managed, is paying almost the same tax, because again, like B has managed to take benefit of all the allowances. And if you look at C here, so C although has taken benefit of all the allowances, but still shelling out huge in taxes. So it means that it is time for C to explore new tax avenues, which could be in the form of income tax deductions and other deductions which are available under the Income Tax Act. This is something which we will discuss in detail later on.
Perfect. Thank you. So this is very, very helpful. So just to kind of summarize what you said, first, you said up to 5 lakh rupees, government has said you don't need to pay any income tax. But important thing that you said is if your income is above 2.5 lakhs and below 5 lakh, you must file an ITR, even if it is a nil tax, but just file your return. Yeah. The second thing that you said is 5 to 10 lakhs, you can pay very less tax as long as you manage it, spread it out in the right buckets. You manage your salary slip nicely. The heads that you draw that salary is, if you do that, you will be able to save tax nicely. You're saying more than 10 lakhs is where the tax is also highest, 30% tax you are supposed to pay. But there is a serious amount of effort required to manage your taxes and the salary slip in a manner that you are able to take advantage of all the deductions and allowances such that you pay as little a tax as possible. And again, I want to highlight this to our viewers. The intent is not to evade taxes. We are not trying to say ki tax ki chori kare, but we are just trying to say that these are the benefits that law provides us to pay less taxes. And we will down the line go through what are those deductions and heads and allowances that are available to all of us. And therefore we pay manage our incomes properly. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said every rupee of tax saved is actually money earned. So I think the idea is to increase our disposable income by way of managing our salary and our making our income tax efficient. So thank you for that. But I think the next, we don't want to keep it superficial. We want to go into the depth of what each of these allowances are and help everybody understand what they mean, so that they can take benefit of what they can save. So, all right, Parul, so let's get our hands dirty, so to say, and get to understand the details of how we can, help everybody plan their salary slip, save taxes. So, first of all, let me start by asking, how can I therefore go to the income tax guy or the tax man and say that my salary is actually lower than what is mentioned or is given to me by or has come in my account, and therefore please let me pay less tax? So how does that process work?
Okay, so I think this is what allowances are all about. So allowances can be fully or partly taxable depending on what type of it is. And so that is why allowances have come to rescue, wherein you're actually you're trying to reduce your taxable salary income here. So so what I'm trying to suggest here is about having an efficient salary structure. So when I talk about salary structure, the scope of change in the structure and the way you have to change it, it's quite organization specific. But still there is a possibility, and if it's done at the beginning of year, it is the best time and it is a possible thing. But few points which you need to ponder upon in this case is that you have to go to your HR and check that and ask them what all possible allowances are there which are applicable to any employee of your grade. Try to make a list of all of them and just find out what all documents or criteria is required to avail them. And after that, just try to make sure that you are making the most of it by availing and making most of the allowances as tax-free. And second thing to ask here is, this is about what is already available in my company and I'm taking its full advantage. Second thing to ask here is that, is there any scope of rejigging your salary structure by reclassifying between the allowances which you have already taken? So one of the examples would be LTA. So it could be like you were not taking LTA earlier, but you think that you will be availing of this year. So it's a very nice and efficient, tax efficient way of saving taxes. In fact, it could be other way around. You already have LTA in your CTC structure, but like given the current pandemic situation, you think you're not going on a vacation. So you can just ask for some other allowances in its place, which you are very sure that you're going to take those allowances. It could be some gadget allowance or some specific allowances about it. So in fact, it's good that now we have a look at all the common allowances which are allowed under the Act for this. So to begin with this, the first one is house rent allowance, what we call is HRA. There is leave travel allowance, which is LTA. Mobile and internet reimbursement. Now, this is something which is very relevant in current work from home scenario, because all the employees must be incurring the Wi-Fi cost, and this is where they can rightfully claim for it. There's also children education allowance. Although amount is not, the thresholds are not huge, but it's 100 rupees per month for education, and hostel it's 300 rupees per month. In fact, each allowance have certain conditions or thresholds, so that you need to understand. Then there is books and periodicals. So in this you can simply ask for reimbursement against the bills which you have incurred in buying newspapers and periodicals. Another one is fuel and petrol reimbursement. So this is again a very relevant expenditure, which is almost incurred by everyone while commuting to office. And the good part is it just not covers the fuel part, it also covers the maintenance part, the maintenance of your vehicle. So even if you have not gone much during this lockdown situation or traveled much, but still from maintenance part, you can claim this particular allowance. So other than this, although list is huge and very role specific, but this is where something you can check from your HR that what all allowances you can claim and make the most of it.
So thanks, Parul. This is very interesting. That basically you are saying that income tax, the taxman allows us that at the end of the day, some of the stuff that we end up doing to do our job better, right? So he's saying that, if you spend fuel in your car to go to work, or, if you're a sales guy, to meet your clients or to do your job, basically, that part should be allowed to be, at least a part of it should be allowed to be made tax free for you. You can claim that should not be added to your income or should be reduced from your income, whichever way you look at it. Similarly, if you are reading some stuff, if you're reading any books and periodicals which you are trying to do to, improve your knowledge, which helps you do your job better, definitely it should be reduced from your income. And then the stuff about mobile, very relevant in today's day and age, and especially the pandemic time that you talked about, and the house rent allowance. So it is akin to the fact that just like if you are a business, right? So you make an income, in your profit and loss, you are allowed deductibles to say that the amount spent by the business to make that income should be reduced and you come to a net income. Similarly, the government is giving those allowances to us to say that, okay, you earn so much, but there is an amount that you ended up spending to make that, income, and therefore you should get the benefit of it. I realize that some of the amounts may not be too significant. These laws do not keep up with the cost of living and the inflation and so on. But I think the larger point that you're trying to make is that these are available for us and we should kind of take advantage of these. Again, like I said, there's a lot of this stuff which is floating around, which is superficial. But today's discussion, we want to go deep into it and make sure that we explain everything. So let's just quickly go over each one of them and help our viewers understand the significance of each one of them, so that they are able to understand the dynamics of this better.
Yeah. Okay. So to begin with, HRA is the one which is most popular and most of the employees are already getting this. And the condition is very simple here. If you pay rent and you get HRA from the company, you're eligible to claim this allowance here. However, it's subject to 3 conditions, which is laid down here. And which is, the first one of them is the actual HRA which you are received, which is the upper limit, which is, of course, you cannot claim this deduction more than the amount HRA which you are receiving. So that is the upper limit. And the second condition is that it will be 40% of your salary if you are living in a non-metro, or 50% of your salary if you are living in a metro, which is Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, or Chennai. And the third condition here is actual rent paid minus 10% of salary. So this may sound a bit complicated, but it's very easy to calculate. And here the salary, definition of salary, it's your basic salary plus DA, which is considered as salary here. And the least of all these 3 is something which you will be getting as deduction, and the entire, and after deducting that, the remaining amount will be taxable.
Perfect.
Now,
so basically you're saying, sorry, I'm interrupting here, but basically what you're saying is that government is saying that you can't misuse this by saying if your salary is 50,000 rupees and you say I pay 50,000 rupees in rent and therefore I will not pay any income tax. So they are saying there are a certain amount of thresholds put there to say that least of these 3 thresholds is the amount that is deductible as an allowance. So you are allowed to, to that extent, not pay income tax.
Yeah. So you're very true. And although I would say that few things are not updated, like just that metro definition. It's even non-metros, the cost of living is much higher these days in non-metro, but we have to live with it, whatever it is. So the whole idea behind this is that everything is at par, like the allowances which you are getting vis-a-vis the rent which you are paying and salary, the HRA which you are receiving, everything should be balanced here.
Right.
Yeah, so few points worth noting here is that, which is the most important part here, is that if the rent which you are showing, which has been paid during the year, if it's more than 1 lakh rupees, you need to mention the PAN number of your landlord mandatorily. And in case if the landlord is not having a PAN number, then a self-declaration has to be obtained from landlord here. So this is a very important point to be noted. Another part is that when both husband and wife, they are working and getting HRA, so they cannot get this benefit on the same rental receipt. Of course, needless to say that they have to pay this separately from their own bank statements and have a separate rent receipt for that. So it's not that both of them are taking double advantage of a single receipt.
So basically what I understand is that over the years, the income tax guys have had to put all these sub conditions because people must be misusing it, right? So they must be giving a name of a landlord which is fictitious, does not exist, and claiming HRA. So now they're saying that, you know, it has to be a real person if it exists. So we need the proof of that also. And similarly, like you're saying, if you know, if it is both the spouses are working for the same rent, if they both can't take HRA and take the government for a ride. So I think these are all sub conditions that have been put so that these benefits or allowances are not misused.
Yeah, exactly. So second one, which we would discuss, is leave travel allowance, LTA. Right. So one of the great ways to save tax is to take leave and go on a vacation. It sounds that simple, and it's actually that simple. So it's just that you have to manage to keep the original documents with yourself so that you can claim them later, and you have to be on leave on that particular time period for which you have undertaken the journey. And this journey can be undertaken by yourself, your family, and there's a definition of family here, that who is included and not included here. So parents can also be included if they are dependent. So that is, so there are few stipulations by Income Tax Act which have to be adhered to. And additionally, a lot of companies have their own additional conditions or checks to make sure that this is not misused, because the amount which can be claimed here is a higher amount. So there are certain checks for this. Not just that, Income Tax Act has also said that within a block, you can claim this for twice. You can claim it twice in a block. So for example, the current block which is going on right now is from 2018 to 2021. So 2021 is the last year. It's a calendar year which they follow. So in this particular block, if an employee does not take one or two of them, he can carry forward one of them just to the next block for claiming the LTA benefit. So that thing is there, that benefit is there.
Very interesting. One of my favorites also. So you are saying for me to take a vacation, government is saying the amount of money that you spent on the vacation can become, you don't have to pay taxes to that extent. And I think you rightly said that I can't do it every year. So it is in a block of 4 years, I can do it twice. So even if I'm, so to that extent, if 2020 was a washout and 2021 is also a washout, unfortunately, the block is ending in 2021. You are saying I can carry forward 1 year, one of my LTAs from this block to the next block, which will be 2022 to 2026, right? So in that, I will have not 2, but 3 blocks. But you're saying I can go alone, I can take my wife, I can take my dependent parents also. And if I keep the paperwork all nicely and submit it to the HR department, to that extent, you know, my that amount will become, that allowance will be given to me, and to that extent, I will not have to pay income tax on that amount.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Cool. So let's.
But Samant, you have to be mindful of the fact that just the traveling costs are covered here. The boarding and lodging costs are not covered. It's just the traveling costs.
Sure. Absolutely.
And it is just the purely travel within India. It's just the domestic travel which is covered here.
Right. No, so like I said, I mean, if you are able to cover your flight tickets to Goa itself, that itself is a good incentive to use this allowance which the government is giving us. And you know, I would think a lot of people don't take advantage of it. So I'm saying if the travel cost itself, just the traveling cost by air or by train is, let's say, 20, 30, 40, 50% of the total holiday cost, why leave it on the table? We should take advantage of it and at least not pay taxes on that. So that's fantastic, Parul. So now we've talked about allowances. So tell us more, where more can we save taxes from? What are the other options available to us?
Yeah, so deductions is something which comes to the rescue for further reducing our taxable income.
Okay.
And it includes there's an exhaustive list which is available for all the options which are available, like the fresh investments which we need to do in a year, or it could also be the personal expenses which we have incurred during the year. So one of the examples, so there is a lot of gung-ho about Section 80C, which all of us are aware about it. There's not, and it's needless to say, it is a very popular option of LIC, PPF, and there is again a whole lot of lists. And the upper limit of this is 1.5 lakhs. Like individually or collectively, you can invest up to 1.5 lakhs.
Right.
But beyond 80C, over and above 80C, there are other deductions also which are available. Like there are retirement funds, investment in pension funds, or even NPS is there, which helps in saving taxes. And there is Mediclaim, which you have the medical cover which you have taken for yourself, your family, and parents, which we will discuss in detail because it's a very, very important tool of saving tax here. Other ones which we usually don't notice, but the deductions which are available would be like if there is a dependent in the family, if you've undertaken treatment of a dependent in family who has got a disability, so deduction is available up to rupees 75,000. So that is there. There is one more deduction which is available if there is a family member for whom you have undertaken medical treatment of specified diseases like cancer, thalassemia. So a lot of those critical illness are mentioned. So if you have undertaken medical treatment up to rupees 40,000, it's either your actual expenditure incurred up to a higher limit of 40,000 is what you can claim as deduction. And if it's a senior citizen, if that patient is a senior citizen, then this limit gets enhanced to 1 lakh. Wow. This is something which we usually, because if such kind of case happens in the family, we forget the fact that it's all at the end of year, we can also take the benefit of taking this deduction somewhere. Right. So that is there. Then there is a loan taken for higher education, which is there in this category. The housing loan, which is a very popular section, which people are usually aware of. And it is a very effective tool for reducing taxes. Then there is one more deduction, which is a new one. So if you have bought an electric vehicle and you have taken a loan against that, so the interest portion of the EMI which you are paying, you can claim up to 1.5 lakhs on that. So that is also, it's a new one which is there. So it's a very interesting if you want to buy an electric vehicle and you've taken a loan for that. Then there are people who could not take benefit of HRA, like either like they are not getting HRA in that year, they could be pensioners, or by some reason like they don't. So 80GG is the one wherein you can still claim deduction in respect of the house rent which you have paid. And again, this has 3 conditions. So the upper limit is 60,000. So the conditions are mentioned. Up to rupees 60,000 deduction is available for those cases also. Obviously, this cannot be clubbed along with HRA. Only as long as HRA benefit you could not take or you were not receiving HRA, you can take benefit of this particular deduction. Then the interest earned on savings accounts will also help you in saving taxes. And the last one, which is 80U, is something if the taxpayer is a disabled individual. So in case of normal disability, he can claim 75,000. And in case of severe disability, he can claim 1.25 lakhs as a straight flat deduction.
Right. So very helpful, Parul. And I know that a lot of these deductions may not be applicable to everyone, but I think it will be a good idea to just go over them and at least understand that there are a few of these, which are these deductions which may be applicable for us, and pick and choose and actually plan it out in the beginning of the year when you are doing your salary slip structuring and you're planning your taxes. So I think it will be best if we can quickly go over, a few of them in detail and actually give the viewers a little bit of a sense of what do they entail and what do they need to be mindful of while planning these. So over to you, if we can spend a little bit of a time in detailing these out.
Yeah, so Section 80C it's one of the most popular. So it's So before you decide, we know that upper limit is 1.5 lakhs here, but before deciding the amount, you also have to discount the provident fund contribution, which is done by your employer for this. So for example, if my EPF contribution is like 30,000 in a year, then I need to just invest 1.2 lakhs. So 1.5 minus 30,000, 1.2 lakhs is the investment corpus which is available for me so that I can save tax. Now, so there are a lot of products which are available in the market when I look at Section 80C, and it's actually very confusing also. It gets confusing if you're not sure where you have to invest.
Sure.
So if you're very keen to invest in stock market, ALSS is the right choice for you. And if you have a girl child whose age is less than 10 years, the Sukanya Samriddhi, it's a very nice investment product and you should go for it. And if you are looking for retirement planning, although it has got a high lock-in period, but then there is PPF and NSC, which is meant for you. And if you think that all these products are too complicated for you to understand, then you can simply go to any bank and invest in a tax-saving FD. Although it has got a very high lock-in period of 5 years, but still there are all the options available depending on what your investment objective is and which stage of life cycle you are in right now.
Absolutely. I think very well put, because one may have personal preferences, but I think you very nicely put it linked to, you know, the priority of and the life stage that one may be, and therefore the relevance of some of these options for them.
Yeah. So other than these, like the list which is the options which are available for ATC, so there is a senior citizen savings scheme. Again, it's a very nice product, because in the current low interest rate scenario, when FD is offering very low interest rates, this is a very nice product, but this is available for senior citizens.
Right.
So again, its applicability has to be checked whether you can invest right now or not. Then there is insurance. Like a lot of us have insurance policies. So the premium which we are paying for that is also eligible under this particular section. Contribution to pension plan, repayment of housing loan, ULIPs. There are so many investment options. But there is one particular thing wherein you don't need to invest at all. You have only on the basis of expenditure which you have incurred during the year. On that basis, you can get this deduction, and that is children tuition fees. Most of the time, we don't realize that this is something, especially who are staying in bigger cities, we're already paying we're spending a huge chunk on tuition fees of our kids. Right. So this is something which is automatically available. Even if I don't want to invest anywhere in this particular year, tuition fees on children up to two children, which is available, is good enough in helping us save this, getting deduction under ATC.
Yeah, perfect. I think you I think made the job easier, hopefully, for a lot of our viewers by funneling out the choices, like I said, depending upon your priorities, because otherwise it's a very large bouquet to choose from as far as Section 80C is concerned, and one very often gets confused, and one often not just get confused, I think also gets taken in by the sales and marketing noise. So 1 year you buy this product because somebody said ATC mein cover hota hai. Next year you bought something else because that product was sounding or shouting at a voice which is larger than everybody else, right? But I think if you understand the nature of each of these, then you can actually, depending upon your requirements and priorities, you can choose and allocate amounts in the Section 80C limit in the beginning of the year also. And therefore you're not running helter-skelter or doing ad hoc investments for Section 80C.
Yeah. So I would like to explain in detail a few of the popular products in ATC. So one of them, which is my favorite, is ELSS, Equity Linked Saving Schemes. Why Equity Linked? Because here the investment is made in equity and equity linked securities. So this is for someone who loves the adrenaline rush of investing in stock market and getting huge returns. But of course, there are higher risk as well. But then ELSS is specially meant for those people, especially if you're young and you're ready, you have a higher risk appetite. ELSS is actually a nice product. And not just that, the icing on the cake is the tax benefits it brings along. So the tax benefits is something like the amount which I have invested in the particular year of investment. So that is eligible for ATC deduction. And not just that, ELSS offers a very nice, decent returns. The ELSS products have a potential of providing good returns, and best performing funds offer returns of somewhere around 15 to 20%.
Right.
So the gains which I make on the redemption, so although that is not tax free, but that comes under the category of long-term capital gain. But up to 1 lakh gains made up to rupees 1 lakh is tax free, and above 1 lakh is something wherein you have to pay 10% tax, which is, again, I find it very lucrative.
Right, right. No, I think very well put. So you're absolutely right that ELSS is emerging as one of the most popular categories. In fact, for viewers who don't know, I will just add in a trivia here that mutual fund industry, all the fund houses put together and thousands of schemes put together, the number of folios, if you just rank all the schemes on the category of funds, right? Number of folios, not the amount, the number of folios. ELSS is the number one category as far as folios is concerned, which just tells you that how popular this category is amongst retail investors. And as you rightly said, lowest lock-in amongst all these Section 80C categories of funds. PPF has 15 years, FD has 5 years, and so on and so forth. And the fact is the potential for returns is also the highest. So 100% agree with you on that view. So let's go on to the next category of deductions that we have.
So just to add here, Samant, that the 3-year rolling basis for ELSS. So Samant, you always keep on saying, right, just invest in ELSS for 3 years. So can you elaborate on that part?
So yeah, actually, okay. So what I generally see is that SIPs are a very popular tool to investing money in equity markets. And a lot of people have used the same logic or discipline to come into ELSS as well. So while it is a great logic and it is a great so let's say, it is very convenient, because let's say if I have to make an investment of 50,000 rupees in ELSS for this year in my Section 80C, and if I say that I will invest 5,000 rupees every month for the next 10 months, it does not pinch me because I'm not putting 50,000 together. B, I get the advantage of averaging my cost of entry. But with ELSS, there is a problem. And that problem is that because it is locked for 3 years, hard lock-in for 3 years, every installment is then 5,000 rupees is locked in for 3 years. So, when it comes for unlocking it or for redeeming it, that money you will unlock after 5,000 every month. So what I generally recommend is, for ELSS, the best thing to do is, if you have to make 50,000 rupees investment, put the entire chunk in April itself, April or May of the financial year, for that entire financial year. The benefit of that is, I know that it will cause you a little bit of hardship of taking out that money right in the beginning, but I'm assuming you will get your bonus, you will have some surpluses, but do it only for 3 years. And the trick there is that if you do it for first year, do it for second year, do it for third year, after that it becomes a self-fulfilling machine, because that 50,000 rupees that you did in year 1, in year 4 in April, that will become free. And let's say, assume by God's grace and by markets giving you decent returns, let's say that 50,000 has become 75,000. And in the 4th year, you will have 75,000 rupees that you can take it out from ELSS and put it back into ELSS. So it will actually not cause any financial strain on your disposable income, right? So therefore, if you do it for 3 years in a discipline, and that is what I was trying to say, that if you make a strategy out of it, by not making ad hoc investments in ATC, saying, "Acha, is saal mein I will put it in a 5-year FD, this year I'll put PPF," and so on and so forth. If it fits in well with your overall objective in your risk taking, like you rightly said, then if you do this for 3 years, then it becomes a self-full. In year 5, what you did in second year, that will become unlocked. In year 3, in year 6, the third year corpus will be available. So and the best part is that you're not taking it out. That money is continuing to get invested in equity for a longer period of time. So that is the trick that I generally advise or suggest to people.
Yeah. So in fact, if you see lock-in period, 3 years is the lowest.
Yeah.
If I see about among all the ATC products,
yeah.
it's the least, is the lowest.
Absolutely.
3 years lock-in period. Another popular one is repayment of housing loan, which falls in ATC. And in fact, this is the only, so buying a house, when you buy a house and you take a loan on this, so this is a loan which is actually an asset in real sense, because it is helping you reduce taxable income every year. And considering the amounts of tax benefits which are available, it's worthwhile taking this home loan. So I would just like to split this into two parts. So the EMIs, the monthly EMIs which you pay on your housing loan, the principal part which you repay during the year. So the principal portion, you can claim it under ATC. Obviously, there is the 1.5 limits applies here. And the interest portion on the EMI. So there is an upper limit of up to rupees 3.5 lakhs. So in total, if you see, it's giving the principal and the interest part, it's offering a great tax benefit in case if you have going for home loan. So the relevant sections would be 24 and 80 EEA, and there are a lot of conditions which have to be satisfied, because the income tax authorities, they just want to ensure that they are just serious and genuine home loan buyers. So they have put conditions like you should not resell your home within 5 years, or like you should not, the construction of the property should be completed in a stipulated time. And so there are a lot of conditions which have to be satisfied, because the amount of stakes, the amount of deduction which you are getting here is huge. So that is why you can check with your HR what all things have to be satisfied. But this is, if you have a home loan or planning to take a home loan, this is going to be a very tax effective for you.
No, great point, Parul, because like you rightly said, you are creating a capital asset. And if you are young and maybe a young couple, creating your own home is always a very high priority for us Indians. So here is something where you're creating a capital asset for yourself, and then the government is throwing in tax advantages. And you made a very interesting point. A lot of people don't understand that any EMI that you pay on housing loan is actually at the back end broken into two parts. There is some part of that EMI which is going towards the principal repayment, and some part which is going towards your interest. And what is very interesting in that calculation is that, let's say it's a 10-year or a 20-year loan, for the first many years, for the initial period, every EMI, major component of that is going towards interest, and a very small component is going towards principal. So like you rightly pointed out that while the principal portion is available for section ATC, that amount is a very small amount as far as your total limit is concerned. But the limit on interest is a very generous limit, and therefore that can lead to significant savings. So anybody who has a housing loan has to be clued on to this. Make sure that you put it out in your salary slip, in your income tax declaration to your HR in the beginning of the year, and are able to get the benefit of that. So going on ahead, Parul.
Samarth, I want to add one thing here. So in case if both husband and wife are planning to take home loan, so both the benefits which I mentioned are individually applicable to both of them. So and it's double the benefit, provided of course property should be co-owned by them and the loan is also repaid by both of them through their bank statements.
Right.
So if these two things are satisfied, both of them can get this individual benefit of deductions.
Yeah, perfect. Very important point. Unlike the HRA in which it was not possible to do it, here you have the option of doing it.
Exactly.
Perfect. So moving ahead, let's move ahead from the large world of section ATC, and let's talk and look beyond. So what are the options that somebody has beyond section ATC as far as deductions are concerned?
So once again, so we are also BPF is there. So this is actually in the category of ATC only. So let me discuss BPF now. Okay. So voluntary provident fund, it's a very less talked about, but still it's the best and the safest way to reduce the tax outflows for the salaried people. So you must be wondering, what is VPF now? There is EPF, which is Employee Provident Fund. There is PPF, which is Public Provident Fund. There is VPF, and as the name suggests, it's voluntary. So your employer and yourself, you can just voluntarily apply to give this contribution. So if you're somebody who wants who are very much who are at peace with getting guaranteed returns, you like PPF already, and you think that you want some more benefit, so this VPF comes under 80C itself. And if you want to, you can just go to your employer at the beginning of year and say that, okay, my so there's a threshold limit, like up to 100% of your basic is the upper limit of which you can set aside in the VPF. And VPF amount, you don't have to open a separate account. It's just your current PPF account is what comes into place. Your money is getting reflected there. It's shown as VPF, and it can change every year. It can be zero in a year, and it can, so at the beginning of it, you can decide how much you want to allocate. And then there would be monthly contributions, the monthly deductions from your salary, which will directly go to your account. So it's very similar to how PPF is done. It's very similar to that. And good part is that, again, it offers you the best of both worlds. It's a risk-free investment, and the decent returns are quite decent. And if I talk about taxation, so if you are getting interest up to 9.5%, so the threshold right now is 9.5%. So if you are earning up to 9.5% interest, that is also tax-free. So this is, again, people don't, I mean, this is not a very popular product, but still this is something which you can still opt for, this EPF thing.
Right. So great, Parul. Now that we have covered the big world of Section 80C, let's also talk about what are the other options available to us beyond Section 80C.
Yeah, so now that once you have exhausted your 80C limit of 1.5 lakhs and you think that it's time to explore more options, so the following products are the ones which you can consider in your calculation of taxable income. So one of the products which is picking up demand these days is NPS, National Pension Scheme. So when you're investing, it's a retirement fund, it's a retirement savings fund, and while doing so, it can help you actually earn more dignity. So apart from getting pension during your retirement years, you can also save tax in the year in which you are making these contributions, these investments, when you are doing this. So these are, NPS is nothing but these are the long-term retirement planning solutions. And the money invested in NPS is actually invested in market-linked securities. And you also have the option of selecting those securities. So either you can leave it at the hand of the fund manager, or you can yourself also make those allocations and actively change those allocations whenever you want them. But at the end of it, so the conditions are that once you attain the retirement age of 60 years, you have a retirement corpus which is available, and you also get pension after that. So this is something which I find is very relevant for private sector employees, because they don't, like government sector employees get this pension mandatorily, but this is something missing for private sector employees. So if those of you who have not have invested in some other retirement products, this is a very nice option available. And in this also, there are different ways by which you can contribute. So like one of them is, which is covered already under 80C, but still, if you categorically want to invest in retirement funds and you don't want PPF, because PPF offers a very fixed rate of return and you want it differently. So you want a higher return. So then you can invest in NPS, and the amount of investment which you have done is covered under 1.5 lakhs limit. So this contribution can be done by both employer and employee. There is over and above 80C, where NPS is very popular these days, is that if you want to save more tax, then additional 50,000 contribution which you do towards NPS can help you in saving taxes. So 50,000 will be, your taxable income will get reduced by 50,000 rupees here. So this is where it can help in saving taxes. But I would just like to mention here is that this is a very illiquid, this kind of investment is very highly illiquid, and it requires long-term commitment of money. So you have to be mentally prepared that you're not going to touch these funds in case of emergency or something. So because these are purely retirement funds. And even after retiring, you cannot fully withdraw this money. So again, there are some conditions for that.
Right. So I think Parul, thanks for highlighting this. So there are social security is a very large issue, especially in developed markets like US and Europe, where the number of what they called as retirees to the dependents to the working population is much higher. We are blessed as a nation where we are a very young nation, so we don't have that problem today. But I think the government is trying to create a very strong social security environment and an infrastructure such that people who work through their lives in their later years, they have a nest egg and are able to take care of themselves financially, whether it is for living expenses or medical expenses and so on and so forth. So NPS is a brilliant I would say initiative, and like everything else, government is actually giving us tax incentive to do something which is good for us, right? And what can be better than that you are doing a service to yourself by investing in NPS and also getting a tax break on that. But you made a very, very relevant point about the commitment on this, because unlike a ELSS or any other section 80C, there is a lock-in, and after a few years you get access to that money. This money will be only available at the age of when you retire. And to that extent also, like you said, some part will be available paid as one time lump sum, and the rest will be an annuity. So that again will come to you every month as a drawdown to make sure that the design is such that it gives you regular income as well, right, in your later years. So one must take advantage of this, but be very clear of what you are getting into, right? The point's very, very well made. Moving ahead, what are the other options that one may have?
Yeah. So, like most of us, or I mean, every one of us have savings account. But what we don't realize is that the money which is lying idle in savings account is also helping us in saving taxes. And how? Because this is something you realize only when you're filing your return. When you realize that the interest earned on savings bank account up to rupees 10,000 is completely tax free, which means that if you have, like, for example, earned 12,000 interest income in a year, so you have to pay tax only for the differential 2,000 rupees. So up to 10,000, it's safe. Although it's not a big amount, but still, while you're doing advanced tax calculations, or even when you are planning for your tax impact for the whole year, especially who are in a threshold, if you are very much close to threshold, so these small amounts also make a difference, and you should be aware of them, which somebody who is not filing returns, or so usually people are not aware of this, but that benefit is also available.
Right. In the beginning, you did mention about Mediclaim, and I think the environment, because of the pandemic for the last almost 1.5 years, all of us have seen the impact, not just on the healthcare, but also the costs of medical treatments, and the impact that they can have on our financial well-being. So, what is the advantage of Mediclaim in this whole? I mean, we are not going to spend time on explaining the benefit of Mediclaim from the healthcare benefit in terms of mitigating the costs of that challenge. But from a taxation perspective, what are the benefits that we have?
Yeah, so Mediclaim, as the name suggests, is the insurance cover, medical insurance cover, which you are taking for yourself and your family. And these COVID times have actually underlined the importance of getting this cover. And if you still have not taken this, it's high time you go for this, because not just having an insurance cover, but it will also help you in saving taxes here. So how? So I will directly jump to what are the taxation benefits which are available, because it's a great avenue for saving taxes. So when you buy this policy, when this is bought for yourself, your own spouse and children, the immediate family which you have, so the premium which you pay up to rupees 25,000, you get this tax benefit, the tax deduction, which is straight. This is over and above ATC,
Right.
and simply you just get that much. So, for example, if I paid a premium of 22,000, I will get deduction of 22,000. If I pay a premium of 28,000, so upper limit is 25,000. I will not get beyond 25,000.
Yeah.
So this is for Mediclaim, which you have taken for your own family, immediate family. And now, when you take this premium for your parents, this benefit gets added. There's an additional benefit by rupees 25,000. So it works similarly to what I explained for this. So the actual expenditure or the upper limit, whichever is lower, will be applicable. And you also have to see that whether your parents are senior citizens or not. So in case if they are senior citizens, this 25,000 is actually becomes 50,000. So there is this table which nicely explains all the scenarios that if you are taking this claim for yourself and you're not a senior citizen, it's 25,000, and for your parents, it's, if they are senior citizen, becomes 50,000. So total benefit becomes 75,000. Similarly, so this table explains what are all other scenarios and what is the maximum deduction which I can claim under this section.
Right.
Over and above these two, there is an additional deduction up to rupees 5,000. Again, the same logic of actual cost incurred or the higher limit of 5,000. So it's a very common thing. We undertake preventive health checkups during the year. So that is an additional 5,000 rupees higher limit, which we can claim during the year. So this will also, as we say, every rupee saved is rupee earned. Even we forget claiming these small amounts in deduction, but why not? If we can claim it, we should very much claim these deductions while filing a income return.
So I think like we were discussing in the case of NPS also, that there are a lot of these deductions and allowances which have been provided for our benefit. It is almost like the government is trying to give us a signal saying that these are the things that you should do for your own financial well-being or for your own well-being, and to make you do the right things. They're incentivizing us. They're incentivizing all of us to say that, okay, it is almost like dealing with kids, right? So you want to make them take the right steps, build the right habits. So you incentivize them by giving them a chocolate or, buying them a book or a toy by saying, this is the right behavior. If you follow this right behavior, I will incentivize you. I think to that extent, all these tax breaks are of course beneficial. So we should not just look at it from the immediate gratification, the instant gratification that they do to us from a tax saving perspective, but also the larger objective of the habits that the government is trying to help us form. So this has been very, very helpful. I'm sure everybody will kind of appreciate this and learn from it and minimize their tax outgoes. So have we missed out anything in terms of, is there any other deduction that is available that that one can use?
So a lot many times, like when you begin your career and you want to jumpstart your career and you go for an education loan to finance your higher studies. So the good part here is that the year from which you start making the repayment of that particular loan is the year from which you can also start claiming deduction for the interest component for which you are making the repayment of the loans.
Right.
And the best part here is that, like all other sections, there is no upper limit or any threshold here. So whatever be your interest component of the EMI, you can claim full benefit of this up to 8 years, not beyond that.
Right.
Not beyond 8 years. So the interest on education loan repayments is again a very useful section. And not just that, the loan can be taken for your high studies, your spouse, or even your children. So again, obviously you have to satisfy certain conditions which are laid down here, but it's a very beneficial section, and it can go to a great extent in saving your taxes. And it's also recommended that if you have taken this kind of loan, you should try to repay them within 8 years, because beyond 8 years, you're not going to get its tax benefit.
Very interesting, Parul. I think we have seen this quite a lot. A lot of young people today are not just happy with completing their graduation and they want to either maybe after a few years of work experience, they want to pursue a higher course, which could be anything, right? It could be today about artificial intelligence or digital marketing, and there are a lot of executive education programs that are available from a lot of IIMs and ISBs and so on and so forth. So again, investing in yourself is a very important, I would say, objective of the upcoming generation, and government is giving enough tax breaks for that also, to say that if you invest in yourself, retool yourself, reskill yourself, and a very important thing that you highlighted is that up to 8 years, entire amount of interest being repaid is again knocked off from your income, which again is a very decent, I would say, tax advantage. And therefore, your tool tip or the tip is that take an education loan, but don't make the tenure to be more than 8 years, because that is where you get the tax break for. And another very important thing that you mentioned is that it can also be used by parents who want to invest in their kids' education. Right?
Exactly.
So if a parent is still working in a corporate, has a good decent salary, and he does this, takes an education loan for their children's education, for higher education, or any such course, even they can. So it is a win-win, right? So you put
Exactly.
your kid to the right program, you kind of educate them, you get a tax break on it, and so that again is something that I would want should be a key takeaway from this particular conversation. So Parul, this has been really, really, really helpful and insightful, and I hope that everybody who goes through this is able to take away a few tools, tips, hacks to really go back and first of all, understand their salary slip. So when they look at that document, I hope they will not be scared any longer and say, what is all this ATC, DEFG, whatever. So the fact is that, yes, they sound very confusing and jargonized, but because there are so many laws, but everybody has a very noble intention behind it. And that intention is well-meaning towards us. It is going to help us save taxes, our hard-earned money. So I think they will be able to look at their salary slip better. B, in the beginning of the year, make the right choices of how do they want to plan the deductions, the allowances, the exemptions, so that they are able to make it tax efficient, and in that process also make some good long-term calls. Like we talked about the benefit of ELSS, we talked about benefit of NPS, we talked about education loan, we also talked about fun, leave travel allowance. So make sure that you plan your travels properly and you are able to save taxes on that also, right? Your telephone bills, make sure that they are properly filed and you kind of highlight them. Your fuel expenses, your car or a bike maintenance expenses, all that. So I think that is the third takeaway. I hope that all viewers who see this are able to take away from this. Obviously, I want to highlight that we are doing this program in early June 2021, and it is a digital content and it can remain there for a longer period of time. Some of these numbers that we talked about, limits that we talked about, they may change, right, every passing year. So just keep that in mind, that if you are doing it, watching this sometime down the road, just be clear to recheck the limits and entitlements once. So thank you, Parul. This has been very, very insightful, and I think I'm sure everybody will benefit from it.
So, okay, Samant, I want to ask a question from you. That would you like to make any recommendation to youngsters who have recently started working or are completely new to this investment and financial planning scenario? So, like if I have been asked the same question in my case, I would like, based on my investment wisdom, I would regret the fact that I have not invested in stock market at an early age. And that is why I missed the part of compounding if I would have invested at an early age. And that I used to rely more on traditional FDs, or taking few, like I remember my first Section 80C product was a ULIP. because my friend was on the other side. So you make some decisions purely by heart rather than using mind. So these are like my own experiences or my own investment mistakes or wisdom, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
But would you like to make some recommendation here?
So Parul, I think likewise. So what has happened is that India, unfortunately, money and money management is something that is not talked about openly. In fact, so much so that I think I'm a firm believer, and I've said this many times, that we are as a society obsessed about talking about physics, chemistry, maths, biology, teaching our kids all those, but not talking and teaching them about money. And while they do this for their school, college, and all that, and everybody wants a great package, but when they start making a great package, what do you do with the money? So if they are not able to manage that money well, it means nothing. And as you rightly said, even with me, I mean, I've been in financial services for now 23, 24 years. The only grouse that I have is, even then, why didn't I start early? Right? So I think my best advice, or my simple, not even advice, my biggest recommendation and request is that, especially we are a young nation, that everybody take charge and take stock of their money as early as you can, right? And start saving, start investing your journey wherever it is. I'm not even making a recommendation that I'll come to later. So start, make that start as early as possible. The second thing that I want to say, and again, I am biased here, but, and I've again done this many times, I will ask everyone to go and search who are the richest people in the world, right? So there is that Forbes magazine which does this survey every year. You go to Forbes website, there is a list of richest people in the world, and you go and see top 10, top 20, top 50 richest people in the world. Every guy or lady on that list is there on that list only and only because of the equity that they own, right? Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or Mukesh Ambani is rich because of the stock price of Reliance or Amazon or Microsoft and the amount of equity that they hold. So according to me, equity is the most democratic asset class available in the world. वो कोई भेदभाव नहीं करता कि आप कहाँ से आ रहे हो, आप जलंधर से आ रहे हो या कोची से आ रहे हो या आप बॉम्बे से आ रहे हो. Every day the stock market opens, the price is same for everyone. So it's an equal opportunity for everyone. Now it is up to you whether you want to participate or not. So that is my second advice, that from a long-term perspective, there is no better asset class than equity. Third is that, and which was very topical today, that at the end of the day, we all work hard, right? So managing your expenses and taxes is a very, very important part of your success.
Exactly.
Right? The richer the guy, you will see, the more particular he is about his expenses and managing his taxes. He will have a 10-member team to manage those.
Exactly.
Because he knows the power of that. He knows that, if I can keep these in control, save my money there, this saving of money from taxes or lower expenses will go into investments, into my business, into investing, which is again money multiplier, right?
Exactly.
So that is money well spent. You go and ask that guy. There are a lot of guys, rich guys, who have a family office today, which will employ 10 people, 20 people. You ask them, you have 20 people to manage your own family's office, right? So he will say, boss, this is money well spent. If they, if they end up saving a couple of crores to me every year, spending 20 lakhs or 30 lakhs on them is not an expense. It is an investment. It is generating so much returns. So I think managing your salary, your income, your taxes, your expenses is very, very, very important to your success of your in your life and your financial well-being. And so I would leave it at these three for today's discussion and say that, the earlier you start, don't forget, equity is your friend, not your enemy. It becomes your enemy if you try and flirt with it. If you get into a committed relationship with it, उससे बढ़िया कोई partner नहीं है life के लिए. And third is keep a control on your taxes and your expenses. Perfect. So thank you, Parul. Thank you for a lovely session. I think this has been really insightful. The way you covered the details, I've seen a lot of stuff on internet. This topic is boring. It is complex. It is not something that people want to talk about or want to spend time on. But I think it is also important that we try and spend time on it, demystify it, make people understand the importance of it. So thank you for participating in this, and we hope that all of you now have a very good plan for your tax saving. So plan क्या है? So there is a plan for tax saving, and manage your salary slip and your tax liability efficiently. So stay tuned, and we will catch up again and pick up another interesting topic and come back and spend some time with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.